Are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. It's Monday night at 9 p.m. and time for Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Dr. Ricky Siegel is a certified sex therapist, educator, and supervisor, and his brother Larry Siegel is a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator. The Siegel Brothers are here to answer all your questions about sex and sexuality, but we're unsure who to ask, including questions you didn't even know you had. They will also welcome guests from around the globe to talk about a wide variety of topics and issues within the fascinating world of sexuality. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Sex Talk.
Good evening, and welcome to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. My name is Ricky Siegel, and I'm a certified sex therapist.
And I'm Larry Siegel, a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator.
And all-around good egg. And my big bro.
And just a bit fried. And one of my absolute favorite roles.
My big bro?
Your big bro.
Aww. Go on. That's nice to hear. Thank you. Welcome. If you're listening to us on the radio in South Florida, we are on 95.3 FM and 1470 AM. If you're watching us, our live stream on Facebook, hello, and thank you for joining us. Welcome, welcome. You can hit that send email button on the Facebook page for Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers, or give us a call for the first few minutes of the show. If you got a burning question, you can call in real quick, but we're going to be having a guest in a few minutes. But the call-in line is 888-565-1470.
Right, so call now.
Sure. Or email some questions.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that the toll-free blondes? Right? Call now.
That's right.
Call the number on your screen.
Operators are standing by. So, it's kind of our last show of the year. We should not forget to wish our listening audience all the best for a happy Christmas and a happy New Year.
In whatever holidays people celebrate, however they celebrate.
It's this month, Christmas, Hana, Kwanzaa.
Right. But whatever you do, make it hot, make it sexy.
And Merry Festivus. And that's right, have sexy thoughts.
Right.
Too many times family kills the erotic. There can be too much family. It's time, great to visit. Yeah, wonderful to see you. Now get the kids and get out of here.
Well, I think oftentimes holidays themselves kill the erotic.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a reason why sort of middle to end of January is high suicide, because the bills come in and everybody is just, gets so obsessed with what they're supposed to do for the holidays that people kind of forget to have fun.
Yeah, and then it's not it's not sexy to give or receive gifts out of obligation, out of a sense of that you're expected to spend more money than you can afford because it's a holiday.
Well,
I like to give gifts for no reason at random times all year round.
Absolutely, but you know what? We can say the same thing very often with holiday sex. How much of holiday sex is really obligatory? It's like, oh yeah, it's time for me to do that Christmas thing. All right, give me your Yule log. Whatever. You want me to do what with the candy cane? Okay. But it really is, it often lacks that punch. It lacks that, just like they really want to be doing it. Because it does seem obligatory very often.
Sure.
So snap out of that. Right? Whatever you're doing with your Yule logs and your candy canes and whatever you're stuffing in your stocking, change it up. Do something fresh. Do something different. Let that be the sort of holiday message for people. Do something they've never done before. Surprise their partner. Surprise yourself.
Have yourself a sexy, sexy Christmas.
That's right. That's right. Because it's cold out there. Oh, yes, I did.
Oh, it's...
What do you think about that?
It is awful rapey, and it's funny. It's typical of the times. But I guess in the context, I can't make too much fun, because of course no one in their right mind would get away with publishing a song like that today.
Well,
but considering the values in the 40s, the 50s, whenever that song was written.
You're right, and you know what, and I have said that myself. That it's a bit rapey, and I want to walk that back. No, it really it's
the lyrics
predatory.
Just sound so.
It's definitely predatory.
Yeah,
all right, it has that element of it, but it is. We can't ignore the zeitgeist. Because if this really is, and I hate the expression slippery slope, but it really is very much. Where does that end? We can't compare.
There's
we
already
can't,
stuff on the internet showing where it ends.
I know.
Right?
Well,
Have you seen Grandma kissing Santa Claus and all that?
right,
Right?
exactly. Okay, does that really have to be a necessary controversy?
That's where
Zeitgeist. If this is the problem I have with that. If we don't come
you'll
to
find
some
something in every single
not only that,
Christmas
but
carol.
walk away, close down this country.
Yeah, we're
Right?
done.
Close down the country, shut it down. It's over. Forget it. You know, it's gotta. There has to be some point where we stop reacting. And I'm sorry, like basically frightened children. And it's not. I'm sorry, not frightened children. I don't want to insult frightened children. Just basically spoiled children. And understand that, you know what? Yes, that is the context that it existed in. That's how sort of the value, that's the energy that was at the time. Let's move on. We can't erase that. We can't change that. If we have evolved, if we have changed the context for it, then let's understand that. Let's have a dialogue. Let's talk about it. And let's move forward. This idea that you can't play that song again is childish.
Well,
Just
okay,
like, and I'm going to also throw this out there too, that in spite of the horrific things that he has done, that he has been found guilty of, and I'm glad he's going to jail for it, but does that mean that Bill Cosby is not funny from the 60s anymore?
We're not allowed to smile
If you
or
hear
laugh.
an old joke, are you not allowed to laugh
That's
at
right.
it?
Yeah. I mean, he used to be funny.
Yes, exactly.
Long before this whole mess, he lost his
I'm
funny.
not justifying or trying to whitewash, or I'm sorry, I'm going to probably get in trouble for even saying that. But to try to cover over and water down any of these issues, but there is a sense of where we are now is not where it was then.
But just to play devil's advocate, we recently had a controversy over monuments and statues that are offensive to people. If we can ban those and change the names of Jefferson Davis highways and icons of Confederacy.
But I think those are very, very different. I think it's a classic apples and oranges, because you're talking about symbols that were put up fairly recently with the sole purpose of intimidating a group of people and reminding of their place.
Right. Yeah.
So I think there's a whole different message and a whole different setup. Right? Now, given that, I'm also not opposed to having other things that are up to sort of commemorate other views and, again, make it a conversation. Right? It's and one thing I will say to my progressive brothers and sisters: stop making conservatives right.
Yeah.
Right? There is something to this criticism of fascist progressivism.
Yeah.
If I don't agree with you, I will shut you down. That's wrong.
Right.
Right? Plain and simple, that's wrong. Right?
Yeah.
And again, we have to look at where does it go, because now look at where it goes. It's almost the opposite of where we are sexually, because a lot of these same people will fight for the anything goes aspect of sexuality and sexual behavior.
Interesting.
And where does that lead us?
But don't offend them with the wrong word, or again, you'll be shut down.
Right. And again, I do respect people's right to be referred to the pronouns of their choice, but I am also drawing a line there, and I will put this out there in public. If you are one of those people that as an individual wants to be referred to as a they or a them, I'm not going to do it. It's just grammatically incorrect and narcissistic.
It is a plural.
Unless you're an indigenous person, you're American native,
two-spirit.
then you're a two-spirit, and that has a history.
It is a plural pronoun. It is difficult. I've had some really awkward supervision sessions talking with a therapist, and the therapist keeps referring to they and their partner, and I'm trying to keep track. Wait, are we talking? Oh, okay, it's the individual's they, and they have a partner. Yeah, it gets... It's boggy, but hey,
it's an end of year
talk
kind
about
of
the zeitgeist, right?
And
That's
in
the
that
times
spirit,
we're living in.
the spirit of the spirit, is sort of end of year kind of a conversation. Where are we headed with all of this? There really does seem to be
I'm scared and a little concerned that the Me Too thing seems to have, our hummingbird attention span. What have we forgotten already? Is it on to the next thing now? I mean, what kind of ended up emerging as our theme on this show over the past year?
Yeah. Yeah.
When was the last time I've heard anybody even talking about it? Except
Well,
the
other than-
occasional reference of the post-Me Too world, whatever that is.
Well, actually, there's
things
still
have changed.
I mean, you talk about a pendulum
This is
swinging
what
the
I
other
want
way.
to talk to Greg about
Okay.
if he logs on.
The pendulum swinging the other way. Now, other actors like Jeffrey Rush and other people are now being accused of sexually inappropriate behavior because they hit on women. They kind of, again, we're jerks. Are we criminalizing that now?
Somebody's in a position of power. They shouldn't be hitting on somebody who can be influenced by their power. That's the definition of it.
That I agree. But if you're kind of
I guess, is it illegal
again,
to
it's
be
just a guy.
an a-hole?
Right.
Yeah.
And I just want women to think about that sort of relationship between how quick some are to kind of take on the victim mantle and this idea of feminism and strength and empowerment. How do we balance that?
Right. Maybe by, that shutting down thing you mentioned before. I see a lot of efforts, really, really well-meaning people, but people with privilege, trying to better understand and trying to better be an ally to marginalized people. And they're often slapped down.
That's right.
With that, don't patronize, or you don't
I've experienced that
understand,
myself.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Almost
It's almost
like,
how dare I
Yeah.
even think about being a trans ally?
yeah.
You don't know.
And
There's
for a
problem
while,
with
I mean,
that.
even back in the late '80s, early '90s, when you were like the closet heterosexual at the Stop AIDS Project, right? There was a lot of that kind of heterophobia. Like, what are you doing here? Right.
Right. I was
And you were
treated like a
weren't you on
trespasser.
a board at some time.
I was. I brought them, helped bring them to this coast from San Francisco. Right. And yeah, it was
The
one
Stop
of those.
AIDS Project.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
what I
in the
said?
late '80s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
It's
was
a-
treated as an interloper, as
A bit of a trend I've noticed in the sex therapy field. Well, you can see a huge difference, like between STAR, the Society for Sex Therapy and Research, which is very academic and smaller, but could use better diversity. And sometimes it seems like it's very Northeast and Canadian and very Jewish. And ASECT is, as you know, over the past 30 years that we've been around, almost for you, 25 for me. It's grown immensely, but it's grown so much, so well, so fast that there's this inertia now that it's kind of starting to turn into this empowerment. I mean, now I'm stepping into what you stepped into, right? I'm not for disempowering, disenfranchised, disempowered people.
Right.
Right. But we have to find a comfortable place where people in privileged classes and positions can pull up people who don't have the same access.
That's right.
Even education and supervision and certification training. I get the dig that it's a little elitist. It's not available to everyone.
well, and yeah.
So I'm happy to
on
say
some
there
level,
are
I think
efforts.
there
There
is,
are
but-
efforts to make it more accessible and available.
Right, and that is key, I think, for everything. And it really is about opportunity.
I wonder if
Right. So access and
our guest
availability.
calling in.
Yeah, I guess Greg's not on yet, is he?
No.
Oh, he is.
Oh,
Oh.
can we bring him on? Terrific.
Oh, hey, wonderful.
Sorry. There he is.
Hey, Greg. Didn't know
Dr.
you were there.
Pizzi. Good to see you,
I
my
thought
friend.
you forgot about me.
No, I didn't know you were
waiting-
there.
we were waiting for some cue that you were hooked up and ready
wow,
to go.
It's good to see you.
Welcome,
When I called
welcome.
in, I was told that I was going to get a virtual red carpet rolled out, and I was expecting to see it just being rolled out for me. So I guess this is it.
Can't you see
How
it?
you guys doing?
The camera's,
it's right along here.
too
Is it,
low.
I think
We
it's below.
tried.
Sorry.
We tried. But
Good
what
to
can I
see you
say
guys.
about this
Happy
wonderful
holidays.
man? We're fellow alumni of the Florida Postgraduate Sex Therapy Training Institute, and Greg is a brilliant psychologist. You still down in the Brickell area in downtown Miami?
Yeah, actually, I live in downtown Miami, but I've expanded my practice throughout the state of Florida through the use of telehealth.
Nice.
I now view my sex therapy and patients through the use of telecommunications, somewhat similar to what we're doing right now.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
it's quickly becoming the standard of practice and even covered by insurance now, as you know.
Indeed. And I want to talk about that later when we're talking about men, because I imagine it's a real advantage. The technology, sitting in front of a computer talking to someone, I would think is easier for a lot of men who are, like going to the dentist for a root canal to go to a therapist's office and have to talk about feelings or feel,
I think they prefer the root canal.
feel confronted and
right.
like Tammy Nelson once said, we expect too much of men in the therapy office to go in and be able to connect with their feelings and talk about them as easily as women.
Yeah.
Yeah, the telepsychology movement has not only amplified and use of the service and made it an increased convenience, but it's absolutely revolutionized the field in terms of the way things are done, the way communication is done, the way the patient and the sex therapist interchange information, the timing of it, because nowadays we use electronic, confidential HIPAA, HIPAA-controlled devices to share information, even in between sessions. Nowadays, patients don't even have to wait until the session time to spit out what they want to say. They just write it all down in the secure app that we use, and then when I log in, I get it.
That's cool.
So it's changing the whole field, and you're right. It is making it a lot more possible for people who wouldn't touch therapy with a 100-foot pole to really delve into their issues and open up.
Now, are these aren't like full sessions, are they? Are these sort of like 10-minute chunks and 15-minute chunks?
Well, there are some people that work that way, but I stick to the
50-minute hour
therapeutic model. I work with couples in either a 45-minute or a 90-minute, which is recommended session.
Excellent.
And whether it's in, and I don't have a virtual office. I don't have a brick and mortar office anymore.
Wow.
So now, from the first session to the last session, it's all online.
That's That's amazing.
I'm really glad to hear that you do that, because I have been a little skeptical. Been seeing more and more ads on TV and all over the place, even online.
Yeah, these
that there are
national
all
companies.
Of these, these national companies. But there are all these apps which are basically like, I'm having a panic attack, and I'll log in 2 minutes. They'll send me an inspirational quote and basically try to maybe talk me down all of 2 minutes.
Yeah, and that really does a great job in terms of increasing credibility for our field.
Right.
Doesn't it? It's like if you have 2 minutes and can download an app, we can solve your life's problem.
That's right.
But there was one that was on recently that I think the American Psychological Association sued them because it had a disclaimer, and I don't remember the one. It was one of the popular ones. It was, talk something. One of these. The common ones that was on recently, and it said that it does not provide, in their legal disclaimer, they say we do not provide therapy, we provide therapeutic conversation.
Oh,
that was the statement in their legal disclaimer, and the APA actually filed a suit against them.
Good.
Oh, so I can't start doing that on the bus.
Well, you can. APA doesn't have anything over you.
That's true.
Remember that we're not allowed to solicit directly our clients in this field. They have to come to us first. But, I think it's really important as professionals that we maintain the integrity of the therapeutic process by keeping it as similar as possible, whether it's face-to-face live in person or via some type of telecommunications, because we still have to do no harm to the patient. We still have to maintain the same confidentiality, and that's even more challenging when you do it over electronic lines.
Can you ever really know if there's someone else in the room off camera?
No, and that's why we need to really be careful about our informed consent.
Yeah.
We need to include in our informed consent now a whole new section that
I'm
says,
sure.
I do my best to keep our sessions confidential. However, in order for that to happen, you need to do your part, which is to ensure that there is no one in the room, that the door is closed, that you do not have, that you are not using someone else's Wi-Fi network in your house, and that it's your own router.
Nice.
That you are using a headset. All these items have to be included, otherwise we are not doing our jobs as therapists to make sure that the patient gets confidential.
Wow. So, and you've obviously put in the thought that is necessary to kind of put that together, because I don't think most people would. You know, maybe most people would say, well, make sure that you're alone.
Yeah.
It's probably as far as most will go.
Well, we have the American Telemedicine Association nowadays. We have them to guide us through these rules. And I've been in sessions, it's happened from time to time, where I'll be in a session, and then the patient will stop talking to me, and I can see that they're responding to someone else in the room. And I have to make a decision, do I keep talking or not? Because I don't know who that person is. So I have to remind them that they have to ensure their own privacy as well.
So we were talking earlier that, you know, in the year since this Me Too movement started, we found ourselves just, the theme of the show emerged. We just are a couple of middle-aged dudes talking about men and men's role in sexual health and men's attitudes. And I know that you have a lot of background and experience also on the forensic side of things and working with sex offenders who we know are proportionally mostly men. And just some general thoughts, just because we haven't talked in a couple of years. What are you seeing clinically? What are your thoughts on today's men in couples, in sexuality, in therapy?
Great question, and I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing for us to be discussing tonight. I was listening to you guys, of course, as I was waiting for that red carpet that never came to roll out. I was listening to you guys talking about the songs. And I think that it's very, very tough for men nowadays. I think that, you know, not that there isn't a lot of wrongdoing by men and women, but I think that men have a very, very hard time nowadays balancing being a man and being what society is expecting or calling upon them to be. Because one of the questions that I wanted to ask you as I was listening to you discussing the song, and I don't know I think it was it Larry or you, Ricky, that said, it's definitely predatory tone.
Larry said that,
I would like to challenge that and ask you where you see that, because I think it's human nature for the male to be somewhat of a seeker, of an aggressor, of the one that's got the energy and the testosterone to go looking for and start. If men didn't initiate sex, then when would the sex happen? You know, throughout history and culture, almost all cultures, it's the male is the initiator. It's expected.
Right, I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Of the male to do.
In fact, in some cultures, it would be offended if a woman initiates.
This song, right, or the woman's offended if the man doesn't.
Right.
What happens when the man doesn't? It's worse. So now, why isn't it okay for this man to be respectfully, in a verbal, back and forth communicative style, with absolutely no physical undertones of coercion? Why is this a problem?
No, and I have to. That's why I wanted to change the characterization to, you know, it's more predatory than rapey. Because I think it is that kind of dominance. That is, a guy takes, he goes for it.
Right.
I think that's what's really being reflected.
By predatory, perhaps you mean assertive?
Yeah, pushy. There was a really funny
Predatory, to me,
take on it that
carries
Jimmy
the
Fallon did,
connotation of
where it turns around real well. Where he's
Yeah, I saw that. Well, actually, and the reason I think I do use the word predatory is because I think, a lot of male sexual behavior really is, for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, is inherently predatory. Most men look at sexual opportunities as just that. They're opportunities. They're conquests. There's something they can get. There's a transactional element to it. Now, I'm not using it with the amount of judgment that I think most people usually would use when they use that term. Right? But I do think it is that sort of assertive, aggressive, sexually dominant, wired to go after kind of behavior. Right? And my recharacterizing that was also about not wanting it to be a song that has to be banned.
Yeah.
Right. Because I haven't heard the song, I haven't listened to it again in full since this whole thing came out recently. So I may be missing parts of it.
Well, check it out and check out the Jimmy Fallon spoof on it.
Right.
It's really cute.
Actually, I think maybe a better word would be coercive.
Yeah, I think
that might be a better
word. Yeah, predatory sounds.
I would say persuasive.
Persuasive. Okay. Yeah, that's a good argument.
Coercive implies force. There was no force in
I don't know that it does, though. I think coercion is persuasion after no.
Right.
That's how I look at it. Persuasion after no. It's persuasion until they say, no, I don't really want to. But then once you start with, oh, come on, no, you got to do it. Now it's coercion. I think coercion can be forceful, but I don't think it has to be.
Yeah.
Did she say at some point, absolutely, no, I'm leaving, this is it, I'm done, before anywhere in the song?
No, it's
because
just
I
the constant litany
saying,
of
I need
excuses.
to get going, it's late.
Right, yeah, no, I got to go. All right, one more drink, stay. So
I viewed it as a playful flirtation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as I'm sure it was intended when it was written then,
right.
not for these, ready to be offended snowflakes.
And because
jumping up and down with like their hair's on fire.
And that's the thing. And unfortunately, because we run out of time, it goes so quickly. I think what you're saying right now, Greg, especially I think this is where that song should be. It should be. Let's talk about what does it mean to you. All right. If it bothers you, don't listen to it.
Mm.
Right? If I want to see it as a sort of flirtation, a fun kind of thing, why shouldn't I be able to? Right? So if it bothers you, don't listen to it. But you shouldn't have to let me.
Greg, before we're
down.
going to hear the music in a couple seconds, before we run out of time, let folks know how to get a hold of you.
Absolutely. drpizzi.com, drpizzi.com, and Facebook, of course.
Dr. Greg Pizzi, thank you so much for joining us. It's really good to see you. We'll have to get together in the real world.
Yes, and we'll have to bring you back on, talk more about
best
this.
Wishes to you and all of our listeners and viewers for a wonderful Christmas and happy, healthy, sexy New Year.
Yes, indeed.
And we'll be on the radio for the next couple of Mondays. We'll have a rerun next week and then a recorded show for New Year's Eve.
Yep.
And thanks you all for listening to Sex Talk
you.
with the Siegel Brothers.
And thanks again, Greg. Good night.
You've been listening to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Join us every Monday night at 9 p.m. on WNN, 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. Or watch live streaming video at AMP2 TV Productions on Facebook, or look for the shows on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again next week.